I Care a Lot is an absolutely ludicrous story. It's an appallingly executed narrative that could have been so wonderful. It could have been so poignant and so important for the treatment of elderly individuals. We know that elderly care is not always as good as it should be, despite ageing populations. And I Care a Lot, which was released, I believe 2020, but it was released in the UK 2021. It was just recently put onto Amazon Prime. And it's about a woman called Marla, who puts this elderly woman into a care home to try and swindle all of the money out of her. And I feel like I'm poorly explaining that, but basically I think it could have been a really good look at the fact that a lot of elderly individuals are just put to a side and taken advantage of. And that could have been so thought-provoking and so inspiring and so moving. And it didn't need to lose the comedy aspect, because this is a comedy crime thriller. It didn't need to be not funny in order for it to be important, but this is just a ludicrous mess. So it's written and directed by J Blakeson, and J Blakeson is not a writer I'd heard of, and I'm not going to say that I won't watch any more of his films, because it's not fair to judge a person by one work, but I will say I Care a Lot is definitely not a good example of quality writing. In terms of directing, visually, it was up to scratch. There's some pretty powerful action scenes. The pacing is decent. There are a few kind of explosive moments that I think work well, and there are a few surprises and a couple of twists. So with the narrative it's trying to deliver, it does a good job. But unfortunately, that narrative is almost farcical. It's so ridiculous, it's so over the top, and it completely takes this potentially really serious, important topic and just turns it into chaos. It becomes ludicrous. It's completely unnecessary. The outcome for a lot of characters is just rubbish, and the ending I won't spoil in case you want to watch this, but the ending is a massive disappointment. Not that I had particularly high hopes for a brilliant ending, given the fact that the film was appalling, but I just felt really deflated by the end of it. I will say that Dianne Wiest was brilliant as Jennifer Peterson. I loved her character. We didn't get to see enough of her, to be perfectly honest. But this was more about Marla, played by Rosamund Pike. And again, the acting across the board, brilliant, no problems. Roman is played by Peter Dinklage, who I always like. I have no issues with any of the casting at all. The locations were fine, directing fine, editing fine. Soundtrack didn't stand out, but that proves that it wasn't awful. The only problem is that it's taken this really interesting and potentially really powerful story and turned it into absolute nonsense. And for that reason, I'm gobsmacked it has 6.3 out of 10 on IMDb. I'm shocked that it was nominated for a Golden Globe. It was nominated for the Best Performance by an Actress for Rosamund Pike. Fair enough, completely, support that nomination. But the film itself seems to be getting quite a bit of love, and I don't understand why. If it had taken itself a bit more seriously and just toned back a lot of the ludicrous actions, maybe it could have been something a bit more respectable, but I have zero respect for I Care a Lot.